So hi guys, got an absolutely amazing guest with me. He's been on the channel before where we talked a lot of boxing, and today he's going to talk about something completely different. It is the legend that is Terry Marsh, boxing champ, in actual fact the IBA light welterweight champion. Terry's been very political, and so he's going to talk to us about this thing about not voting and everything.
The situation has been that I generally always go to the polling station and collect my ballot.
Yes.
But after 2005, 2006, there's never been anyone I wanted to vote for.
Yes.
And the way that I do that is by taking my vote home. But I get lots of pushback from the polling staff when I do this. They say
so
that
describe
I'm not
the situation. So you go in, you have to show your identity or whatever. You get your ballot paper, and then you just walk out the door.
That's right. I do a so-called 180 degrees, but they say no. You have to go to the polling booth where you put your tick or your cross against your preferred candidate, and then you put it in the ballot box, and then you leave. I don't. I just go to leave, and they'll always say no. You can't do that. It's against the rules. And some say it's against the law. But in fact, it isn't against the law, and there's no law saying that you can't do it. It is you expressing the free will of the people. Lots of people
try to physically restrain you, Terry, or what do they do?
When it first occurred, and I know this retrospectively, I was actually reported to the police and put on a police intelligence file. This was back in 2007, 2006. Right. I know that retrospectively. However, others have done everything they possibly can to stop me, but not being physical. And I would say, well, show me the evidence, show me the proof where what you're saying I'm doing is illegal. And they would all fall at that hurdle. What in fact happened was when I went to do my vote, I've gone to go out like I always do, and they've said, "So sorry, sir, you can't do that. You have to put it in the ballot." And I've said, "You don't." And they said, "Well, we'll have to make a phone call and check with the local democratic services, which is the local council in Basildon." And so I waited, but they got to the stage when they said, "No, I can't take my ballot." And the presiding officer, who was a bigger guy than me, I think he fancied his chances because he positioned himself in the double doors exit or entrance and exit, of course, depending which way you're coming in. Yeah. And so I came. So I tried to get out, and he stopped me. And I've moved over to the right where the gap was on the door, and he stopped me again. And I thought, well, he's made it perfectly clear that he's not letting me out. Yeah, I consider that an infringement of my rights, not to mention it's against the law. For unlawful detention. Yes. And so I used a measured knee to the groin to debilitate him in order for me to escape from the polling station. And all he could say when this happened was, "Call the police." Now, I was quite relieved when he said, "Call the police." Yes. Because if he'd said, "Call an ambulance," then I would imagine he was hurt. 5 or 6 days later, I get a knock on the door, and it's the police, which I was quite surprised at, because normally when police knock on the door, it's 6 o'clock in the morning as opposed to 8 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. And they've got a warrant for me. I go along and I think to myself, well, I can sue them subsequently if it's unconstitutional. And I'm taken to now I go like a murder in the police car. I'm not talking. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm not violent. I'm just not talking and liaison. And we get to a police station, which I weren't quite sure at the time, but it was Southend, which is not the local police station. Basildon, the local police station, is 5 minutes away. I'm locked up overnight, and then the next morning, I'm handcuffed to some guy who is not a policeman. He's he looks like a security guard. He was a big lump of a guy, but he's handcuffed me in a peculiar, systematic way, which is really, really strange. It was, I felt, it took me back to thinking about doing a three-legged race when I was a kid. And as we've gone out the back door, there's a prison van.
Right.
And I'm being escorted by this big lump of a guy and cuffed to him. And it's got Serco on it.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, I don't believe this. This is untrue.
Yeah.
A bunch of shysters.
Yes.
And all you have to do is Google Serco and see
Yes.
all the shenanigans they've got up to over the years. I won't cooperate in the sense of now I know what they're doing with these handcuffs, which have now gone off me, and I'm putting in some sort of broom cupboard.
Right.
And so off we go. And I'm thinking, well, where are we going to go? Southend Court. But we don't go to Southend Court. And I'm just now in meditation mode. So I don't know where we are, but it's about half hour into the journey, and we've gone to another police station. And then eventually we go to Chelmsford.
Yeah.
And we go to Chelmsford, and there's all the rigmarole of wanting to put the handcuffs back on. And I said, why? I said, no, I'm not putting my hands out. And they said, why not? They said, you have to handcuff you. I said, like you handcuffed me before. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, I ain't going anywhere. And that's what they wanted us to do. And I thought, well, no, I'll get out. I'll walk out. I'll go to the court, but I'm not having handcuffs on me.
Yeah.
And then that created a bit of a problem. And so they said, what's your problem? I said, well, I haven't got a problem. I'm just saying I'm not putting my hands out to be handcuffed because between this gap in the door, which has the chain stopping it. And so there was pandemonium because they all wanted to get home. So then one of them turned around and said, and by this time, I've got no respect for the staff because they were effing and blinding for all sorts of reasons because they all wanted to get home. So then another one come along and said, okay, then we're going to send you back to Southend prison. I say prison, police station, but it was like and he says you can stay there for the next week or so. I said, well, go ahead then, please do it. I ain't moving. And then another guy come along who must have had who was a little bit more intelligent, and he said, what's the problem? What's your problem? I said, well, I'm not wearing handcuffs because it's ridiculous. And they said, well, we have to do that. That's the rules, and it's filmed. But then he said, well, we can work a workaround. So we pretended that I had handcuffs on so that they could escort me from the prison van to the cells within what was Chelmsford Court, which I didn't know at that particular time. And so at one stage, there must have been 8 Sercos surrounding me, hiding the fact from the cameras that I wasn't wearing handcuffs.
Right.
They said, how'd you plead? I said, well, I don't know. I ain't seen the evidence. I don't know what I'm charged with. And it turned out I was being charged with an assault and also fraudulent removal of the ballot paper from the polling station. On the day, they dropped the charge of fraudulent removal of a ballot paper. And they went ahead with the one of assault, with regards to kneeing the gentleman, the large gentleman in the groin. It was a £600 fine.
Yes.
And £600 costs. He's turned around and tried to claim that I chest bumped him twice and then kneed him in the groin. I mean, but I'm a boxer. You know, chest bumping is leading with your chin. It's just a complete no-no.
Yeah.
And he then, having done the verdict of guilty, said, in future occasions, if I want to protest, then perhaps I should draw a willy on the ballot paper. Now, the point is, this judge, again, like the preceding judge, is not doing his job because he has no understanding of the fact that what I was doing was a democratic procedure which was quite legitimate and falls within the Constitution, and also is a part of my human rights.